Back when we started in 2018, Jay presented about digital art. Jay is here to talk about a different perspective, and that's all data-driven. Without further ado, Jay.
I'm so happy to be back here. I love this conference so much. So hi everyone, I'm J Rosenbaum, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm a non-binary researcher, artist, and lecturer. I work at RMIT, and I explore the problems with AI and make art in response to those problems. So today, I want to talk to you about something you've probably seen online already, AI slop. Just before we begin, a quick content warning. This talk contains some really strange images. This is the premise of the talk, but I felt it's really best to prepare you in advance for this. There is also talk of fascism, of the alt-right pipeline, and 2 images of Donald Trump. AI slop is the term used for the proliferation of low-quality images and text made using generative AI. So this term has come into use regarding generative AI images disseminated through social media in particular, and they're increasing at an alarming rate with seemingly no end in sight. The creators of these images have monetized pages and are paid when an image gains in popularity. AI slop can take the form of house interiors, locations, dress designs, which are, pretty benign, not too bad. But they can also take the form of Jesus made of shrimp, trucks overflowing with babies for some reason, oversized Bibles carried by troops, and there are often tags associated with these images, like why don't pictures like this ever trend, and inexplicably beautiful cabin crew. Disturbingly, there's a steady feed of images of generated women. Many of these are catfishing scams. The women are improbably beautiful, usually conforming to Western beauty aesthetics. There's, however, a related series of posts captioned "Seeking Husband." All of the generated women in these posts have flawless pale skin, large eyes, improbably curved bodies. Generative AI has been known to create extraneous body parts. We know about this. However, in this case, the proportions generated are dialed up to such an extreme that they produce images of women that are no longer just improbably perfect, but literally impossible. These women often have extra sets of anatomy, extra heads, breasts, legs, all leading to a troubling glimpse into beauty standards in the age of generative AI. An algorithmic look at the male lens. These impossible women images offer a unique lens for examining how AI can both reflect and challenge existing societal biases and how it relates to beauty, gender, and the human form. So this talk explores the proliferation of this style of AI slop, AI bias, and the impact of generative AI on beauty standards. I'm going to relate the exaggerated idealization of form to the Italian futurists and Nietzsche's Übermensch, to fascist fascinations with neoclassical sculpture, and compare it with the right-wing accounts that interact with these posts. This proliferation will be problematicized as an artwork that generates AI slop as marble statuary, which is intended to be 3D printed as sculptures and shoved aside, impossible figures pushed aside in a new critique of hubris, highlighting the artificiality and potential harm of AI-generated beauty standards. The plastic disposability of the figures stands in contrast with the marble aesthetic, showing the kitsch underbelly of AI slop. The algorithmic gaze is a term used to describe how AI can perpetuate and even amplify the objectification of women in its depictions. It's essentially an extension of the male gaze, a term coined by film critic Laura Mulvey, to explain how traditional visual media often present women as passive objects of male desire. The male gaze highlights the power dynamics inherent in the act of looking, where women are often reduced to objects of male scrutiny. It's rooted in societal norms and power structures that have historically positioned men as the viewers and women as the viewee. Algorithms, in particular AI algorithms used in image creation, learn from the vast amounts of data scraped from all over the internet. And these data often reflect existing societal biases, including those related to gender and beauty. And as a result, AI can often reproduce and even exaggerate those biases in its outputs. Now, this leads to the way AI's biases manifest in the depiction of women. Because AI is trained on data sets that often contain objectified or stereotyped representations of women, it can perpetuate those same representations in its own creations. AI algorithms can exhibit a bias towards Eurocentric features, even when attempting to depict women from diverse backgrounds. The algorithmic gaze can contribute to the erasure of diversity of human beauty by prioritizing and reproducing a limited range of features. These images condense the algorithmic gaze and desirability down to curves, to breasts and legs, to the ultimate form of the male gaze, and emphasize Eurocentric features and sexualized features to the point of absurdity. In order to analyze AI beauty standards, I did a test of 100 Midjourney generations. The prompt was a photo of a woman. The results were quite telling even in this very small sample. I did try to quantify the metrics, but there was simply not enough diversity to properly test. Every single woman was young and thin, most were white, and all were feminine, cisgender, able, and impossibly beautiful. I assessed these images by sight, which is not a reliable method, but it was still revealing. I first sorted by race, but this was challenging and it felt problematic, so I turned instead to the Fitzpatrick skin scale. This felt more objective, although still not ideal. But you can see that there is still a very clear bias towards paler skin. In the graph, you can actually see the skin color distribution is so incredibly skewed towards the lighter skin tones. I rarely saw anyone over the age of 30 represented, so I assessed by visible age, from under 20, 20 to 25, 25 to 30, and over 30. Again, the biases are very clear. The greatest representation is in the under 20 and 20 to 25 range. Some challenges faced by this were that some images were overly artistic, leading to a difficulty ascertaining specific details. If I repeat this experiment, it will be with a more finely tuned prompt that minimizes those complications. And I would also like to test it with additional image generation systems. So this is ongoing research at this point. The generated women seeking husband all have similar features, with the exception of being impossibly thin. These women are all generally pale-skinned, Eurocentric beauties with a focus on both the algorithmic gaze and the male gaze, which is really startling. These images are a horrific chimera of sexualized body parts in a down-to-earth setting, and there are others that cater for specific fetishized interests, which I'm not sharing. I'm drawn to these women with their caterpillar bodies and their multiple limbs and heads. I can't help it. They're so cursed. I'm absolutely drawn to them. I find them the natural conclusion to the AI trying to cater for the male gaze, trying to adapt to it to such an extreme that it is losing the concept of what a human really is. So, the comments on these posts are telling as well. Several are clearly bots or fake posters amplifying the content, but some are genuinely humans. And when looking through those human commenters, I found clueless elderly boomers who may have actually lost their accounts. I found the joke comments that we expect, but I also found people who follow right-wing churches and Trump fans. Under the more complimentary human posts, there would usually comments. There would usually be a response from an account asking for a private message or providing a link to a website. Now, I did not follow those links. By this stage, I've already torpedoed my Facebook algorithm, and I really did not want to do that anymore. And, you know, I have some security in mind, let's be honest. The comments on these posts point to a troubling lack of critical thinking on these. I mean, these are really fake images. These aren't just, you know, a nice looking amethyst bathtub. These are clearly extraordinarily fake. And so I'm seeing these responses and this lack of critical thinking. Sometimes there were videos, and the videos would ask for a phone number, and people would respond in droves, providing presumably their own phone numbers on a public forum. These images point to a concept of algorithmic posthumanist perfection beyond the human. It's idealism to the extreme. Kitsch algorithmic creations pushed by an avant-garde need for progression and acceleration, constantly searching ahead for the next advancement. Which brings me to fascism. The artwork centered around this research seeks to tie together the impossible beauty standards of generative AI with the chimeric forms of women seen online in thinly veiled catfishing attempts. By pushing the boundaries of the human form to such extremes, these images might provoke viewers to question their own assumptions about what constitutes beauty or desirability. This work, furthermore, seeks to tie in the right-wing elements that interact with these posts by hearkening back to the marble forms so lauded by fascists. Historically, other idealized forms include Greek and Roman statuary, captured in marble, a model of godlike perfection. These edifications have been lauded by fascist governments to celebrate purity, whiteness, despite the statues not actually originally being white, and their idealized form. Mussolini created an edification to fascist architecture with the Palazzo della Civiltà Italiana. This structure, built as a monument to fascism, and that's how he describes it, has 28 statues, all idealized forms, perfected ideals of humanity in travertine marble. These works are exemplified by Nietzsche's Übermensch, centered on an idealized vision of human potential achieved through individual willpower and adherence to a strict moral code. This concept, often linked to physical prowess and racial superiority, was inherently exclusionary and encouraged and used to justify violence and discrimination. It's a short step to view the idealizations of Mussolini and Hitler with the new idealizations of AI, and the infatuation with Eurocentric beauty and perfection to the exclusion of all else. This quote, for me, is one of the key focuses of my work. Kitsch, using for raw material the debased and academicized simulacra of genuine culture, welcomes and cultivates this insensibility. It is the source of its profits. Kitsch is mechanical and operates by formulas. Kitsch is vicarious experience and faked sensations. Kitsch changes according to style, but always remains the same. Kitsch is the epitome of all that is spurious in the life of our times. Kitsch pretends to demand nothing of its customers except their money, not even their time. This quote was written in 1939 in Clement Greenberg's critique of fascism. It echoes the state we find ourselves in with generative AI, a platform that takes elements of our cultures and condenses it into a mechanical formula for profit generation. Systems that demand nothing of their users, only output, no introspection, only generation, never creation, where nothing is real but simulates reality for the purposes of profit creation. AI slop has found a new home in right-wing circles as idealized forms of Trump, Putin, the IDF, and sensationalization of natural disasters have come to the fore. Now, it makes sense. Generative AI is kitsch. It is avant-garde. It is, at its core, the coming together of the two to create a pastiche. Now, Clement Greenberg proposed that the kitsch is the schlocky and cartoonish, the style of Stalinism, fascism, and Nazism. He proposed that it exists opposite to avant-garde, the art of the modernists. However, John Gantz proposes that fascism is always both, avant-garde and kitsch, and it's difficult to fully divorce one side from the other. The avant-garde abstractions into attractive notions such as power obscures just how ugly and stupid power really looks in practice. And we've got a great example of ugly and stupid right there. During the recent election, we saw not only ridiculous propaganda of Trump, but slandering deepfakes of Harris and right-wing reactions to generated images around Hurricane Helene. The prevailing thought was that the truth of or reality of the image didn't matter. It was the sentiment, the feelings evoked, which mattered the most. And this typifies that propaganda view that the truth is less important than the feeling. Amy Kremer wrote in response to the commenters telling her that this image was AI. She wrote, "Y'all, I don't know where this photo came from, and honestly, it doesn't matter. I'm leaving it because it is emblematic of the trauma and pain people are living through right now. So the truth should not get in the way of a good story," is what she's saying. In The Origins of Totalitarianism, which I've been hearing about way too much lately, Hannah Arendt writes, "The ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the convinced communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction no longer exist." This use of AI slop to create propaganda led me on a very weird path to research the algorithms involved in social media, the way that social media pushes agendas. So it's been proven that YouTube has an alt-right pipeline in its algorithm. And with Facebook continuing to encourage AI slop, I wanted to see if there was a similar effect. To that end, I created a new Facebook account so I didn't permanently ruin my existing one. And I liked the pages responsible for the I Need Husband posts. And I started seeing signs of alt-right content within 24 hours of creating this account. And in less than a week, the account was algorithmically served pornographic posts, misogyny, racism, military AI slop, and religious propaganda. I particularly noticed the chain letter style of Christianity posts, where a white AI-generated Jesus would implore us to like, share, comment, and subscribe in order to receive blessings and wealth. And I'm pretty sure that's not what Jesus would do. I saw on the comments of those videos were reams of people saying amen. I saw AI-generated religious posts capitalizing on the LA fires, which were raging at the time, driving fear towards people into viewing the videos. I had the generated videos of women seeking a husband with an incredibly robotic voice, begging for phone numbers and offering visas. Now, I hadn't considered that visas might be part of this catfishing attempt. It's actually one of the oldest romance scams. Offering a visa for the United States, Australia, or the UK, these videos claim that all you need to do is comment your phone number. And these were wildly popular, with people sharing their phone numbers in droves. It's deeply disturbing how obviously fake these photos and videos are, and how people would keep interacting with them. Romance scams range from human trafficking scams to different types of, money generation and your more typical catfishing scams. The alt-right pipeline online is a funnel that directs people incrementally towards increasingly alt-right content. Rather than being a single moment in time, it's more like a series of steps in the direction of alt-right content and extremism. There are 3 phases of alt-right radicalisation: normalisation, also known as irony poisoning, acclimation, and dehumanisation. Normalisation is about the saturation of subjects and jokes and memes to desensitise the viewer, wearing down the shock value until it seems normal. In my recent Facebook analysis, I observed irony poisoning using AI slop and short-form video content, normalising the objectification of women with AI slop images that became increasingly sexualised, and then outright porn. As the use of jokes and humour are a key part of this stage of the pipeline, it is telling that the algorithm started serving comedy live videos that became increasingly more misogynistic, including implied rape. I also saw AI slop memes about how we can't make jokes anymore. I saw examples with AI-generated Garfield and Shrek that gradually turned into more menacing homophobic and transphobic jokes. So a series of researchers into the alt-right pipeline, Woodhouse and Fang, stated that when users post so many genocide and rape jokes, they become so detached from reality that they become susceptible to the messages of bona fide hate groups, a transformation referred to in forums as irony poisoning. This alt-right pipeline in AI slop began with objectification of women and quickly turned to jokes about rape and oppression of minoritized groups. Acclimation complements and follows on from normalization. It is the habituation of the content to allow for a new baseline of tolerance. These are the lighter stages of the alt-right pipeline that make the bigger issues easier for the person to swallow. Researchers specifically cite Western supremacy and traditional Christian values, which caught my eye, as that's the point where I felt like my algorithm was starting to take that turn towards the alt-right. The recurrence of white AI Jesus begging for his likes and comments and shares, videos showing how to find a godly woman and what differentiates a godly woman from an evil woman. And it's important to note that all of these videos at this point were entirely AI generated. The women are all white and thin, but the godly woman is blonde-haired and blue-eyed, with the evil woman usually having darker hair and a more olive complexion. There are also little homilies about pride for women and how they look for men who are rich and attractive and ignore men who aren't. Every person, yet again, is beautiful, slim, Eurocentric, showing that clear bias. In the live videos, porn content was rampant, police women and IDF women doing TikTok dances, and AI slop of images of Putin became prevalent in the algorithmically served feed. I will not be sharing images from this stage. I found them genuinely distressing, and it actually took quite a while for my mental health to recover. So I'm not going to subject you to any of that. The final stage, dehumanization, relies on the us versus them mentality. Laid bare, the alt-right vision includes abhorrent actions done to certain clusters of the population, from deportation to genocide. The point at which I stopped the experiment was when the timeline displayed generative AI slop of IDF soldiers with their feet on the necks of praying Palestinians. The image, algorithmically served to me by an account I did not follow, was abhorrent and a clear marker that I had crossed over to that final stage. While anti-Semitism is also a horrifically clear marker of the alt-right pipeline and Nazism, anti-Muslim prejudice is also a determining factor. Israel is positioned with Russia and the US now, yay, as on the far right of the political alignment spectrum. In this observed pipeline, I believe it is important to note that this began from liking images of AI slop women, particularly these sorts of images of AI slop women. We know that misogyny is inherently tied to the alt-right pipeline. But to see it progress so far within a week was so frightening, so startling. This experiment began with misogyny and ended with genocide. It began with Eurocentric beauty standards and reinforced white supremacy at every single step. It could be seen as an alt-white pipeline. Misogyny is seen as a jumping-off point for the alt-right because it targets disenfranchised men, but also, like AI slop, reinforces strict beauty standards that lean towards white supremacist views. In retrospect, the women seeking a husband posts are often portrayed as working on a farm, and this leans into that aesthetic of the down-to-earth tradwife who can take care of land and home with beautifully made-up faces and hair while still maintaining that folksy ideal that right-wing accounts appear to target, of the right-wing accounts they appear to target. They work with stereotypes of femininity as performance, creating an image crafted for the consumption of men. The emphasis on breasts and hips, the careful touches of femininity are all chosen to cater to a white supremacist gaze. These algorithmic women are a new concept of Nietzsche's Übermensch, created by machine to emulate a strict set of ideals, catering to a specific male gaze, one which is ripe for alt-right influence and religious extremism. AI slop is continually being produced and shared on Facebook in particular. The reasons for this are multitudinous. The platform rewards popular posts financially, and this encourages creators to generate more and share more, and it's become a somewhat sustainable business model. There are instruction videos online targeted towards making money on Facebook using generative AI. The videos often discuss what works, what increases engagement, resulting in AI interiors and design, posts of amputees, nostalgia posts, tragically poor people and veterans with "why don't pictures like this ever trend?" or feats of improbable creativity. All of these captions and images specifically tied to engagement and are designed to provoke a response in order to increase sharing and interaction with the post. The images are propagated using a free Facebook add-on for Chrome called FewFeed. This allows people to push posts to a wide range of groups and open pages to maximize engagement. Despite the use of add-ons to push AI slop content, Mark Zuckerberg has stated that he will be encouraging AI posts more. The catfish spam in particular is the central part of my research, but the pulling together of AI slop, alt-right fascism, and AI aesthetics with beauty standards all has led me to this new intersection of eldritch horror. So the artwork that I'm working on right now, resulting from this research, problematizes this relationship between real and fake generated chimeric women and the relationship between classical sculpture and fascism. I'm fine-tuning Flux, Stable Diffusion XL, using low-rank adaptation models, also known as LoRa, on this AI slop, and set up a production line where figures are going to be generated as marble sculptures and then made into 3D models using Meshi, and then 3D printed on a belt conveyor 3D printer and pushed aside continuously, a system of creation, generation, and disposability. It's a grotesque mimicry of generative AI churning out slop, but tied to the concept of fascist fascinations with marble sculptures and the inherently misogynistic way these images are generated and disseminated over periods of time. These works are both a product of the algorithmic gaze and a method for subverting it. So LoRa is a fast way to fine-tune a large model. It works by freezing the weights of generative AI system in place and then fine-tuning the model to add new data. This changes the weights to support the new data and focus on it. And in this way, we receive a highly specific system rather than a generalized one. So in this case, the model is trained on AI slop of bad anatomy in order to reproduce that bad anatomy with more reliability. Meshi uses a proprietary algorithm to generate images into a 3D model and would not let me know more about than that. The benefit of Meshi over something like Gaussian splatting is that it's a manifold production and outputs an STL. So then it's a simple matter to verify it and send it to a 3D printer using Python to receive the 3D print. And any print failures are actually a part of this work. They're a feature and are considered part of it because this is ultimately about the failure of the system. The grotesquerie is deliberate, and the plastic relates not just to the plastic nature of the generated images, but also to the fragility and toxicity of plastic and fascism. Ideally, some of these will be sintered stoneworks, a ridiculous monument to generative AI, fascism and fakery, clearly wrong, clearly strange, calling to mind the algorithmic gaze and how perfection is an impossible concept. These works subvert the male gaze by being deliberately unappealing, raising questions about the ethical implications of using AI to manipulate and control the human form. I feel that the Flux model is particularly successful in creating the kitsch appearance with the grotesque undertones. AI derives its power from the collective choices of users, creating a bottom-up dynamic that makes it more difficult to regulate and control. The artworks show the problems of letting these continue unchecked, challenging the ideals of perfection. Generative AI and fascist ideals both promote a narrow and harmful vision of human perfection. So this work aims to subvert these ideas of perfection, challenging what perfection means to us and to a world inundated by generative AI. The AI-generated women in the I Need a Husband posts are not just reflections of beauty standards, they're exaggerations, distortions, and ultimately failures of an algorithm trying to interpret the male gaze. These images embody a synthetic ideal that pushes past human beauty into something monstrous. Figures with extra limbs, impossibly smooth skin, and exaggerated proportions. When used in this way, AI doesn't just reflect biases, it amplifies them to absurdist extremes, beyond the male gaze to a new algorithmic gaze. The proliferation of these images, particularly in right-wing circles, ties AI-generated beauty to a broader ideological concept, one that aligns with historical fascist obsessions with purity, idealized forms, and strict gender roles. AI's failure to understand beauty results in these uncanny, inhuman figures. These images still reinforce rigid, Eurocentric, and misogynistic standards. This is an algorithm's attempt to manufacture beauty optimized for engagement rather than something created by and for humanity. A power fantasy that exhibits a total lack of understanding of anatomy. It merely conflates the feminine form to impossible extremes. By reinterpreting these AI constructs as marble statuary, the artwork in progress highlights the absurdity of algorithmic beauty, challenging the fetishization of perfection while demonstrating the ridiculousness of relying on a non-human system to determine beauty for male gaze consumption. This work is about consumption, about absurdity, and about those historical echoes of authoritarian aesthetics. This work challenges the fascist kitsch by overemphasizing the ridiculous fascist power fantasy. It looks to the extremes of AI slop and renders it as an intentionally kitsch work. The destruction of the 3D printed forms, the machinic creation and disposal of the figures speaks to the erosion of rights and that are emerging on current political spheres. The creation of these algorithmically perfected forms speaks to, with no regard for humanity, generated en masse and pushed aside. Consumption and creation and further consumption speaks to the disposability of the masses. AI-generated beauty is disposable. It is plastic and it is iterative. Yet it holds power over how people see themselves and others. Thank you.